Okay, sorry about that. The first couple seconds here, I noticed that my mic was muted. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Yisrael Levitt here with Virtual Kollel, and so excited to be with you guys today again. What I'm going to be doing is just giving you you have to excuse me, I have a little bit of a cough. Going to be giving you guys a little bit of overview of where we've been and where we're up to today. So we are in a period known as the 7 weeks of consolation, Shevta Nechamta in Hebrew. Excuse me. Oh man. And that goes all the way from Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, which commemorates the destruction of the temple, all the way until Rosh Hashana, which is coming up here in about a week and a half or so. And during those 7 weeks, we have 7 different Haftorot, readings from the prophets that are given to us as consolation. They're all taken from the book of Isaiah. And this week we are on the 6th of those Haftarot of consolation, and we're going through Isaiah 60. Yesterday's session, or the last session, which was session number 2 of this week 6, we started going through the Haftorah portion, which is Isaiah 60, and we got through verses 1 through 7. So far, to say, so to speak. So, excuse me. Today, what we're going to do is just review what we've gone through so far, and we're going to go ahead and continue on. So give me just a moment to go ahead and do that. I'm going to share my screen with you, and you're going to see in a little bit of an inception screen here. Just a quick second. But I need to go ahead and do that. And here we are. So, and up here in the top left-hand corner, you should be able to see my smiling face, God willing. And so what we have right here is Isaiah 60 from Chabad.org, which is a brilliant, it's a great place to go ahead and look at the Tanakh, and they also have the commentator of Rabbi Shlomo Yitzhaki, Rashi, the famous medieval commentators you can see here in the kind of like beige. Those are his comments, at least in English. And so, excuse me, without further ado, what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and quickly read through verse 1 through 7. I'm going to actually put his comments to hide right there, and just so we can kind of get through it. And then we're going to go ahead and go on in verses 8 and following. So the first verse, Kumi ori kiva orech uchvod Adonai alayich zarach. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord has shone upon you. Ki hine hachoshech yichasei eretz ve'arafel le'umim. For behold, the darkness shall cover the earth, and a gross darkness, like a thick darkness, a palpable darkness, shall cover the earth. Darkness covered the kingdoms. And upon you, Adonai Chvodo alayich, and his glory is upon you, Yira'eh shall appear. Excuse me. Let's do this. I'm just going to go ahead and put this all in Hebrew here, just so we can go ahead and practice together. And nations shall walk by your light, and kings or kingdoms shall by the brilliance of your shine. So lift up your eyes, look around, and see that all of them have gathered, coming to you. But merachok, your sons from afar, Yava'u will come to you, Uvanosayich al tzad temana, and will be on the side, will be raised up on the side. It's kind of a funky way to go ahead and look at this. It's a little tricky in terms of the language. Just to give you a good translation, by the way. here from, excuse me, at least the art scroll. Your daughters will be raised at their side. Some have suggested maybe the kings of the previous verse have raised them. Az tira'iv in the heart, ufachid rachav levavech. So then you will see, and your you will see, and you'll be radiant, and your heart will be startled and be broadened. Ki yihafech alayich hamon yam chel goyim yavaulach. Why? Because they will the affluence of the West will be turned over. Yihafech, it will be turned over to you. Oh, sorry, here I should highlight this. Yihafech alayich hamon yam. The abundance of the West will be turned over to you. Chel goyim yavo ulach. Excuse me. The wealth of the nations will come to you. Shiv'as gemalim tichasech. And so camels will kind of overtake you or envelop you. Bichrei Midian ve'efa. The youngest or the choicest of Midian and Ephah. Kulam Misheva, they're all from Sheba. Yavo'u Zahav Levona, and they will come to you gold and frankincense. Yisa'u Utihilot Adonai Yivaseru. They will lift up to you, and the praises of the Lord they will pronounce. And then here we are at our ultimate verse. Kol Tzon Kedar Yikvetsu Lach. All the flock, excuse me, perhaps the flock of sheep will come to you from Kedar. Elei Nivayot, and the Nebaioth rams of Nebaioth will come to you. And actually, you know what? I don't think that we went over this verse. No, yes, we did. Okay. So the Nebaioth oath, I'm not sure how to say that in English, will come to you. And so according to some of the commentaries here, these are places from, again, like the Middle East here. Yesharu, yeah, let me do this again. Yesharasu neich. They will serve you. Ya'alu al ratzon mizbechi. They will be raised by my favor to my altar, ubeis tifirati, and the house of my splendor, afair. I will go ahead and glorify. So there we go. So there are the verses here, 1 through 7. And so you can see basically what's happening here. And now again, I'll put the English and the Hebrew back on, and I'll show Rashi's comments as well. So what's happening up to this point is that Israel is being elevated from a place of exile in the Babylonian exile, which we obviously commemorated the initiation of that back on Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, excuse me, some 6 weeks ago. And it's being raised up to a place of splendor and a place where all the nations are going to bring tribute to her. So looking on to verse 8, let's go ahead and continue. Mi ele ka'av te'ufena. So who are these that fly like a cloud? V'chayonim al arubosehem, and like doves to their coats. And so here in verse 8, it's basically asking something of the nature, excuse me, returning to the theme of the exiled Jews, returning to their city of their roots. Isaiah describes the astounding speed at which the ingathering will occur. Mi ele ka'av te ufena. Who are these that fly like a cloud? Observers will be struck by the swiftness of the return and will wonder aloud, who are these that return so quickly? So that's according to the Metzudos. The Maharal explains the allegory of our verse. Just as clouds and birds seem to be unencumbered by the earth's gravitational pull, so Israel will be freed from the natural pull of human materialistic desires when the redemption comes. They will quickly ride to the lofty spiritual grandeur of the holy city. So that's an idea here excuse me, by the Maharal, that they won't be weighed down by the cares of this world, the lofty, I should not say lofty, I'm sorry, the material cares of this world. Let's go ahead and go on to verse 9. Ki li iyim yikavu ve'oniot Tarshish. For the islands will hope for me, and the ships of Tarshish berishona lahaviv anaich merachok. And so here, the ships of Tarshish, the Oniot Tarshish, Barishona, as in the beginning, um, they will be bringing your sons from afar. Kaspam uzahavam itam. They will be bringing their silver and their gold with them. Why? L'shem Adonai Elohayich, in the name of the Lord your God. L'kadosh Yisrael, and for the Holy One of Israel. I'm sorry, for the Holy and for the Holy One of Israel. No, I got that right. Why? Ki fe arach. And so here, what we have here in this very last two words in verse 9, for he has glorified you, ki fe arach, really, I think encompasses everything that's going to be happening. So all the nations are going to bring tribute to Israel. They're going to be bringing the captives from afar, and I mean, obviously, we see that now. If you think about it, every time a Jewish person gets on an airplane that's owned by, like a secular government or like whatever it is, or not, that's owned by a secular company and things like. Well, those are people that are secular who, quote unquote, meaning that they're not Jewish, they're not of the nation of Israel necessarily. And so now I'm going on the peoples of the nations. I'm going on their planes, even though it says the ships of Tarshish. I think it means that kind of more allegorically, but I'm traveling on somebody else's way to travel to Israel, and being brought into. So I think this obviously, that's, can kind of, we can interpret that in modern day terms, like, okay, I'm just taking somebody else's plane to go to the nation, go to the land of Israel. Now here, Rashi has a question. He says, Kili iyim yikavu. So for me are the islands, they hope in me. Ve'oniot Tarshish barishona lehavi b'nayich. And as in the beginning, excuse me, they will bring your sons. So he questions this and says, like as in the beginning. Well, what does that mean? Excuse me. We always have to ask the question, what's bothering Rashi? So that's meaning in the days of Solomon, like the matter that is stated, and he quotes a verse here, 1 Kings 10, verse 22. For the king had at sea ships of Tarshish, etc. Once in 3 years, the ships of Tarshish would come, etc. So Tarshish is the name of the sea, according to Rashi. Tarshish, I think, from other sources, has been known something of like Spain. I think it is that area. So kind of, I guess we could say maybe the greater Mediterranean area. What I did is I just looked up 1 Kings chapter 10, verse 22. And as we see here, let me just scroll down to see what Rashi is talking about. For the king had at sea ships of Tarshish with Hiram's ships once in 3 years. Oops, don't know what happened there. Scroll down a little bit too far, excuse me. Once in 3 years, the ships, there we go, of Tarshish would come bearing gold and silver, ivory, and monkeys and monkeys and peacocks, it says. So okay, so that's basically describing something that happened here. Context. So give me just a quick second here to get back to where we were. Sorry, I tried to get a little fancy here, fancy schmancy, and okay, so there we go. Let me go ahead and go back to a regularly scheduled program. So anyways, let's go ahead and continue to look here at verse Let's see. Oh, by the way, what some of the other commentators have to say about that? The Mahari Kara basically says the ships will now bring your sons from afar. There's an alternative understanding here. The alternative understanding, by the way, as I try to go ahead and get this back to where we were, of understanding from the Ibn Ezra is that the ships of Tarshish will come first because Tarshish is near Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel. Those ships will be the first to arrive. And they'll bring your children from afar to bring the local Jewish populations back to Jerusalem, basically, is the idea. We're back in chapter 60 of Isaiah, and perfect. So now we're back. And let me go ahead and go back. Okay. Uvanu v'nei nechar, and the foreigners shall build your walls. Nechar chamotayich will build your walls. And so really kind of the idea here again, let's see, sorry here, I'm having such trouble. Trying to go ahead, here we go. Perfect. So the idea again is that they, it's really not the foreigners, it's actually the sons of the foreigners. So the Judaica Press, which is the translation you're seeing here in English, I'm not sure why they say the foreigners unless I just misread that. Let me go down to that, to verse 10 and see. Uvanu v'nei nechar. There we go. And foreigners shall build your wall. Yeah, so it's actually the sons. Uvanu vanei v'nechar. Vanu means building. Vanei nechar means like the sons of foreigners. Chamotayich, they will build your walls. Umalachechem yasharusanech. And their kings or their kingdoms, probably their kings is the best translation, will serve you. Ki v'kitz pi hikisich, because now Hashem basically turns and says, yes, in my wrath I did strike you. V'virtzoni richamtich, and now in my grace, or in my desire, another way to translate that in my favor, I have compassion on you. And so here Rashi just says, because I have favored you. And so here he's looking at the Veirotzoni. Verse 10, basically the idea here, according to the Radak, on that part, the Mitsudos and then the Radak, he says, just as in my indignation I struck you in a supernatural manner, so too in my favor I will elevate you in a supernatural manner. And then the Radak adds that this demonstrates that all that happens to you is directly from me. So now we're here about halfway through the chapter with verse 11. And so your gates will always be open day and night. Lo yisageru, they will not be closed. To bring to you chel goyim, the wealth of the nations, umalchechem nehugim, and the kings and their possessions. And so Rashi basically asked the question, meaning, why will the gates be open? What does that mean? And he looks at a little bit at the grammar of the word here. He says this is an expression of opening, and in the strong conjugation, the PL, since their opening is perpetual opening, a constant opening. And so he looks at, kind of how the verb is conjugated in Hebrew. And so he says basically that, this means that their gates will always be, opening, meaning that they're perpetually open. And so the idea here, if you could think of gates being open in a walled or fortified city, as it were in ancient times, that means there is a modicum of peace and there's prosperity, as the verse goes on to say that they're really going to bring they're continually going to bring tribute. So this last phrase right here, Amalchechem Nehugim. So a good translation for that, by the way, and their kings would be under escort. And according to the Targum and the Ibn Ezra, according to the Abrabanel first, they will need escorts because they will be unfamiliar with the temple area. Okay, so Abrabanel looks at that more practically. According to the Targum and the Ibn Ezra, others explain the escort, excuse me, the Hanhaga right here, where it says Nehugim, they will be in some kind of a procession, if you will. He looks at that and says, as having a connotation of servitude, the kings will be in chains, unable to enter the area without being escorted. So, meaning that I guess there will be such a strong military safety presence in the nation, in the city of Jerusalem, that they'll have to be led in by other people. So I don't know about in chains, but I think he means that they're going to be led in instead of coming in and like bursting forth, or God forbid, conquering, things like that. And so verse 12, Ki hagoy hamamlacha asher lo ya'avuduch. So the nation and the kingdom that shall not serve you, yavedu, they shall perish. So ki hagoy v'hamamlacha, the nation and the kingdom, asher lo ya'avduch, right there, yovedu. So I just wanted to go ahead and highlight those words where I was in Hebrew. V'hagoyim charov yecheravu, and the nations will be destroyed. So what's happening right here? Let's go ahead and look at some of the comments here from the classic commentators. So this first part right here, ki hagoy v'hamamlacha asher lo ya'avduch, right there, yovedu. This explains the previous verses. The reason the nations will be humble is not because of their nobility. In other words, it's not on account of the nations themselves, but because they will know that insubordination to Jerusalem carries with it the grave consequences described in this verse. So in other words, that everybody will know in that time, and it will be clearly seen that Jerusalem is the capital, is God's capital, is God's land, if you will. And anybody who opposes that will be probably somehow struck down. So this makes me think of the passage in Zechariah 14. So Zechariah 14, where it says during the holiday of Sukkot, that all the nations that don't bring offerings up to God's house in the Messianic times will not receive rain. And so it's kind of makes me think of that idea. Some of the other comments, for instance, the Al-Sheikh basically says, because Israel will be ascendant during the Messianic era, it will be assumed that non-Jews who wish to convert are motivated not by a sincere motivation to serve God, but because it is advantageous to be Jewish. Therefore, the sages teach that converts will not be accepted during that period. So that's according to the Al-Sheikh, talking a little bit about something else. Similarly, and it goes on and talks more about converts. The Abrabanel suggests that some nations will refuse to subordinate themselves to Jerusalem. Our verse foretells that they will not survive. And continuing on right here with this, the Hagoyim Yecheravu. So that's a very interesting turn of phrase, Charov Yecheravu. And so the Talmud looks at this in Tractate Shabbat 89, side B. It says that Isaiah uses the word Charov, destruction. The sages explain that the word is an allusion to Mount Horeb, another name for Mount Sinai, where the Torah was given. Because the nations refused to accept God's Torah, to accept God's law, and accept God's standards, they brought eternal destruction upon themselves. The Maharal explains the destruction as being a loss of significance. Israel's acceptance of the Torah gave a new and higher meaning to humanity. As a result, the significance of a nation will depend on the degree of its allegiance to the values symbolized by Jerusalem, the heart of the Jewish nation. The earlier self-identity of nations will fade away. So in other words, the Torah will reign supreme, I think, is what's trying to be communicated here. And all those who don't live by the Torah will be destroyed, meaning maybe that they will destroy themselves, maybe they will be punished. Unclear exactly what that means. Let's go ahead and continue on here. Kavod halavanon elaich. So the glory of Lebanon shall come upon you. Yavo berosh tidhar utz ashur yachtav. And so here it names three different kinds of trees, box trees, firs, and cypresses together. And so if you can imagine, those really are building supplies, basically, because anybody who has the most land can have a bunch of trees. And trees obviously can be cut down and used for wood, used for lumber, etc. So again, this is kind of a sign of wealth. In the ancient times, speaking that they'll have a lot of natural resources, if you will. Lifa'er makom mikdoshi umakom raglai achabed. And so here Hashem says, to glorify the place of my sanctuary, the place of my feet, I will honor. And so on these different words right here, Berosh, Tidhar, Utashur, those three words, Rashi basically says there are different species of trees in the forest of Lebanon. Looking at verse 13 here, excuse me, the most glorious trees of Lebanon for forests are the ones mentioned in this verse, according to the Ibn Ezra and the Radak. Although King Solomon needed to hire the workers of King Hiram of Tyre to fell and deliver the wood, in the enlightened Messianic era, the nations will volunteer to do so, says the Me'am Loez. And I will bring honor right here, umakom raglai achabed, and the place of my feet I will honor. I will inspire mankind to donate the necessary materials, according to the Radak. Another interpretation of that here is the prophet refers to the sanctuary, declaring that the materials mentioned in this verse will provide glory to the structure and also to its inner spiritual dimension, the place of my feet, declaring that Hashem will cause mankind to feel reverence for the sight of his glory. The temple is described as the place of my feet. Later in Isaiah 66, the last chapter of Isaiah, verse 1, Isaiah refers to the entire terrestrial world excuse me, as my footstool. When Israel merits having the temple in its midst, God relates to the world by means of human effort. His glory therefore resides in the house built by man. So I want to go ahead and just give some general comments to verses 14 through 17. Isaiah here now discusses the attitude of Israel's former oppressors, their sincere regret, heartfelt apologies, and offer financial reparations. And so let's go through and just read that very quickly here. And the children of your oppressor shall go to you bent over. They will bend over. Al kapos raglaich, and they shall prostrate themselves at the soles of your feet. Kol mana atzaich, all those who let's see here. Kol mana atzaich, yeah, they shall prostrate at your feet, and vikaru lach, and they shall call you the Ir Adonai Tzion Kadosh Israel. They shall call you the Ir Adonai, the city of Tzion Kadosh Israel, the Zion, the heart of Israel. And so here, literally, Zion, the Holy One of Israel, is literally what it says. But according to the Targum, here cited by Rashi, Zion desired of the Holy One of Israel, Zion of the Holy One of Israel. And in verse 15, Tachet Hayosech Azuvah, instead of being forsaken, Usnuah, and hated, the Ein Over, V'samtich right here. And without a passerby, liga on olam, I will make you an everlasting pride, door of a door, and you shall be a joy of every generation. So again, contrasting the way that people looked at Israel and treated Israel in the past. V'yinacht chalev goyim v'shod malachim tinaki. You shall suck the milk of nations, and the breast of kings you shall suck. And via da'at, and you shall know ki ani Adonai Moshiach, and you shall know that I am the Lord who saves you, but goalech and redeems you, Avir Yaakov, the mighty one of Jacob. So here the expression, the shod, an expression of shadayim, according to Rashi, the breasts, and you shall suck, proves it here, as he says. And so just to quickly look at some of those, the comments here, you will nurse from the milk of the nations is maybe another way to render that. Isaiah uses the metaphor of nursing to describe the benefit that Jerusalem will derive from the best that the nations can offer. So you can imagine, a woman breastfeeding a child is really giving of her own body, of herself, and what God has naturally produced inside of her to go ahead and nourish another, her offspring. Now, not only does a woman have to do it to her offspring, there are such things called wet nurses, right, which they can do to other children as well. And so here, but you can imagine this is a very intimate time for a woman to breastfeed a child. And so kind of the very, heart of these nations is they'll give of their innermost possessions, if you will, and their natural resources and things like that, things that make them who they are, the nations who they are, they will give over excuse me, to Israel. And so here in verse 17, let's go ahead and tachat hanachoshet, instead of copper, avi zahab. So obviously gold supersedes tachat harbazel, and instead of iron, avi chesev. And so obviously silver again supersedes iron. But tachas ha'etzim nachoshet, and you will bring copper instead of wood, which obviously is better and stronger. But tachat ha'avanim barzel, and instead of stones, iron. And so here I want to focus on this last part right here. Vasamti fekudateich shalom, and I will make your officers peace. V'nogasaich tzedakah, and your rulers righteousness. And so here Rashi basically has some comments on that, and he says that the Targum Yonatan renders, and I will make your officers peace and your rulers with righteousness. And Pukodateich is unfortunately misspelled here. That Chet Sofit, or Chaf Sofit, I should say, should be at the end. Your appointed officers. Our rabbi stated the officers who came upon you in your exile and the rulers who pressed you will be counted for you as peace and charity. That is, the money they have exacted from you will be counted as charity. In other words, they'll give it back. So now we bring ourselves to verses 18 through 22 through the end here. And let's see here. I want to go ahead and just quickly go through those verses. Maybe we'll look at some very selected comments. I don't want to go much further here. Lo yishama od Hamas. There in your land robbery. It's about artseich. Robbery nor destruction. So Hamas really can go either way. It can either be robbery or it can be destruction. Shod v'shever, and there won't be any more Shod v'shever, I guess you could say, would be destruction as well. Bigvulayich. And so let me get a different translation here for verse 18. Plunder or calamity. Okay, I guess you could say that. The karas Yeshua, and your border, and your chamotayich, your walls, chamotayich, the karas Yeshua, they will be called for salvation. Usharayich tehilat. Now, obviously, I can't help as a Messianic Yeshua follower notice kind of the wordplay. It seems here is implicit in Isaiah that your walls, the very thing that surround and make up the city, if you will, that demarcate the city between it being a city and outside of the walls, not being part of the city of Jerusalem, um, basically are called Yeshua. And so Yeshua, meaning I think the Messiah himself in his kingship and his rule will be encompassing the city itself. And now we come to a very pregnant verse here. Lo yiyeh lach od hashemesh laor. So you will not need the sun for daylight anymore, yomam, for the days. Unogah hayareach lo ya'ir lach. And the brightness of the moon should not give its light. V'haya lach Adonai laor, and said, the Lord shall be for you as a light, olam, as an everlasting light. Ve'elochayich litifarteich, and the glory of the Lord shall be for your glory. Now Rashi is going to look at this and say, we'll no longer have lo yiyeh lach. So what is it? What does it mean by that? You will not require the light of the sun. We can look at Revelations chapter 21, I believe it is, where it says exactly that. And so tomorrow's session, as we go through and look at some of the comments here of some of the Messianic comments, we're actually going to be doing just that. Just finishing off here. Lo yavo od shimsheich. The sun will no longer set. The rechech lo ya'asef, and the moon should not be gathered in. Why? Because ki Adonai yelach, because the Lord shall be for you, laor olam, as the everlasting light. V'shalamu yamei avlech, and the days of your mourning shall be completed. So Rashi looks at this word ya'asef for the moon being gathered in. It says it's an expression similar to, and Yoel, the prophet Joel, chapter 2, verse 10, where it says asfu, gathered in their brightness and gathered in their lights, right there. And so now we come to verse 21 and 22, which are the penultimate and the ultimate verses here. And this really talks about the nation. It talks about the people, the individuals in the nation. And we'll definitely be going over this, looking at this tomorrow when we go over the Messianic aspect of things. And so here it says, Ve'amech kulam tzedikim le'olam. Your people, all of your people, all of them shall be righteous. Your shu aretz, they shall inherit the earth. Netzer matai, they shall be a branch or a sion, as they say, or root of my planting here, a shoot of my planting. Maaseh yadi, maaseh yadai, they will be the work of my hands. Lihit pa'er, in which I glorify. And I'm not going to make any comments on verses 21 and 22, just to go ahead and finish here. I'm a little bit over time. Hakaton yiyeh la'elef, the smallest will be for 1,000 or 1,000-fold. Behatzair lagoy atzum, and the smallest will be for a mighty nation. Ani Adonai be'itah, in its season, I will hasten it. And so today is I want to go ahead and thank all of you guys for joining us here at Holy Language. Excuse me, Holy Language. That's the other ministry that I work with. I wanted to go ahead and thank you so much in Virtual Kollel here for joining us. And I want to ask you to really be blessed by everything that you're reading, by this week's Haftorah, that you can be consoled that just as Israel went from a place of degradation and a place of being ostracized by the people and will be lifted up in the Messianic era, that in the Messianic era, in the Yomot HaMashiach, all of us will be lifted up. As it says, every tear will be dried, every eye will be dried, every tear will be dried, and that we will know only goodness and we will know only blessing from Hashem with our Master and King, Messiah, Yeshua, ruling and reigning from Jerusalem. May it happen soon, speedily in our days. This is Yisrael Levitt here for Virtual Kollel, signing off for today. Have a great day in every way. See you next time. God bless.